My name is Ayodele Adio. I am the host of The Drill. I am a tough guy that like to ask the tough questions. That's what I love to do because I love an honest debate and I love a frank discussion. And that's what I do every single week on the show. I get politicians at the other side of the table, businessmen, people in civil society, pastors, whoever they are. It is my job to ask the tough questions that make them uncomfortable so that you listeners can get the best out of my interviews. Join me every week on The Drill as I ask the most uncomfortable questions, the most important people in society. Senator Gbenga, Ashafa, you're welcome to The Drill. Such a pleasure to have you here, sir.
Thank you very much, Ayo.
The 8th Senate has passed over 201 bills in just 3 years of legislative business. Why do you think the Nigerian people are such hostile towards the 8th Senate?
In answering that question, I will first and foremost want to go back to the three arms that make governance. That is the executive, the judiciary, and the legislative arms. If you look at the three arms, without sounding too immodest, the easily attacked in court arm is usually the legislative side, and this is understandable. During the military era, the judiciary as well as the executive, they were working together. They never, in any form, they were not broken. It is always the legislative arm that will first be proscribed, non-operative. They go into the cooler. That is the historical background. And along the line, if you look at the reputation capital of, let me use the National Assembly, it has been quite negative. Again, you cannot divorce that perception from the historical
perspective
that I just mentioned. Now, the most visible of all of these shortcomings is the fact that when you look at the executive, you can almost see on a daily basis or periodical uh, basis what they do. If they are building bridges, the minister or the commissioner, as it may be, will come out and tell us what they are doing, and people will see and feel them. In the case of the judiciary, this is about meting out sentences or accusing people who, one way or the other, have been brought to the courts. People will see that so and so person was jailed, so and so person has been, acquitted. But in the legislative side, it is something I would call abstract. It is like the abstract arm of the three levels, because our primary function is in lawmaking. And these are laws that after it has been passed, it's not something that you do today and in 3 months everybody sees it. No, the process is
takes quite a while.
it's long.
Okay.
And by the time you finish that law and it has an impact on the society, you probably will be hearing from the presidency that the president has just accepted a bill which has now been passed into.
So most times
law.
the presidency takes your glory.
Well, I wouldn't say that because, you see, whichever way you look at it, it's a symbiotic relationship.
Relationship.
If he doesn't sign, it is not, it doesn't assume that legal totality of
Okay.
what you can refer to as
I
law.
mean, the major criticism, I don't know if you agree with that criticism of the National Assembly as a whole, and this is both at the national and state level, is that the Nigerian people think if you copt most of your entitlements, the Nigerian people will be a little more friendly towards you. They feel that the Nigerian legislators usually earn the biggest in the world. So, do you think that if you take uh, a pay cut, you move towards taking a pay cut, do you think you would have a better face before the Nigerian people?
Um, uh, um, um, uh, Before the start of this interview, if anybody asked me what question that you're going to ask, I will predict that that would have been the first question, and that is part of the negative perception.
Sure.
An average National Assembly uh, member is seen as having been too over pampered by way of our salaries
Yeah.
and remunerations and allowances. But without trying to defend how those allowances and salaries came to be, on an average day, if you open your telephone, it is not even easy, unlike before when there was no online transactions. They make it so easy for you by way of request, financial request, most of the time. And when it comes with the bank details. If I tell you how many I receive on a daily basis, you'll be surprised. That is not to justify whether what we are being given is adequate or not. But I'm just making a sense out of the Nigerian society. Again, we didn't fix these salaries ourselves. No. The genesis of how much you're going to earn. Before I became a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I didn't even know. So if it is going to be revised, let us go back to the process. Revenue mobilization and allocation commission is there. Several times when this issue uh, have been raised, when it has been raised, people forget that it is a matter of the provisions in the constitution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about your work as the National Assembly as a whole. Recently, in fact, as we speak, you're on recess as we speak. But before you went on recess, the executive sent, they needed provisions for the budgets of the INEC before you went on recess, and it does look like it looks like the National Assembly just went on holidays without creating or making adequate provision for the INEC, and that like the executives say, might just jeopardize the coming elections in 2019. So, what is the position, of the National Assembly in terms of the INEC budget?
Well, there is no legislator that you will ask that will not tell you that is anxious and that is ready to do whatever it will take. We are going through elections in a few months down the road. But let us be realistic. Don't let's pack everything and dump it on the doorstep of the National Assembly. The 2018 appropriation bill came on its own. It was debated and it was taken back to the presidency. What happened at that time? Who forgot to make that provision? or was it deliberate that, after we must have passed that and we will come with the supplementary budget? What happened? Okay, let us say we don't want to go back to that for those reasons. Let's move forward. Look at the time that that request was brought to the National Assembly. And we are talking about 189 billion provision. It came at the tail end, the last week of that, all over the world. All over the world. If you look at the judiciary, they are closed for now. The National Assembly of almost every country. But that is not to say that we cannot hold an emergency uh, meeting of the House. This is being contemplated. And the process for the reconvening of the National Assembly is almost completed because the two arms, the committees that are supposed to look at the request, the Joint Committee of the House of Representatives and the Senate, they have met.
Okay.
They've asked the necessary questions bordering on, disparity in figures. While one request was saying from INEC was saying 189 billion, the other request from another arm of government was saying 143. Which one comes first? They are now trying to consolidate these reports.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I will tell you, majority of us have not traveled. Okay. Those who traveled, they went to perform the Holy Pilgrimage. Most of them they are back in town.
So the Nigerian people can have faith.
So
that
reconvening, I believe, is a done deal because everybody is anxious, and we must divorce this from the wranglings and the misunderstanding between the various groups on the defection and the rest of it. This is a singular factor that binds all Nigerians together.
Okay, let's talk a bit about your personal work in the National Assembly, because you talked about the fact that the job of most significantly, I know that you were critical in the railway bill, that was passed. You also worked on night post, generally on the transportation bill in the country. Of what economic importance, of what strategic importance is the Nigerian railway bill, that you worked on? What strategic importance is it to the Nigerian people?
Oh, thank you very much. If we go back to uh, history of transportation in the West African sub-region, and we pick Nigeria particularly, the transportation mode as at that time lacked in mostly on the railways. And during that period, even though what we have is a single track, what do you call it, system of transportation, it worked there. You find transporter trades from Lagos to Maiduguri to Kano, Kano up until the borderline of Niger Republic. It took time, but goods and services were being moved all around. Something happened, and we now transferred the work of the rail to our roads. Trailers were bought, we couldn't maintain our roads, and at the end of the day, we, we are met with these challenges that the Buhari government, the government of President Muhammad Buhari, APC government, now decided to make rail one of the priority um, projects in Nigeria. I'm not saying that previous administrations have not delayed the roads. For instance, the Abuja metro line that has just been commissioned was started about 3 administrations back. The boldness and the courage with which this particular government came in that all these pending projects must be completed is amazing. So back to that bill. The sponsor of that bill brought it, I think it was 2016, 2015. Just shortly when we came in, I think it was 2015. And when it came, I happened to be chairman of land transport, which basically is mass transit and rail. So two things. You must, one, if you are a sponsor, do your own lobbying. And you must have a very, very good and passionate chairman of the committee. With all of modesty, I happened to be the chairman and I took that deal that, wow, this is going to open up the economy of Nigeria, not only the transportation sector.
Okay. So what part, just for the benefit, of the Nigerian people who think that, legislation is usually utopian, um, what exact legislative framework did you have to change or tweak that would actually translate to value, for the Nigerian people?
Now, what we have in existence now is that the Nigeria Railway Corporation, as an entity, serves as the operator and the regulator. In line with global best practices, that shouldn't be. So, what this bill has done is to now make the Nigerian Railway Corporation the uh, regulator and invite investors to come in and participate. So there will be injection of funds from all over the place. The railway system is seen as something very green in Nigeria. So if you look at the number of people that are using it and the network of the rail system, it is not enough. It is capital intensive. We need foreign partners. And we've been so lucky to have the confidence and the commitment of the Chinese government as a result of the entreaties made by President Buhari in his first visit.
Sure. So okay, we'll take a short break,
Okay.
and then we'll come back and talk a bit more about the railway.
My name is Ayodele Adio. I am the host of The Drill. I am a tough guy that like to ask the tough questions. That's what I love to do because I love an honest debate and I love a frank discussion. And that's what I do every single week on this show. I get politicians at the other side of the table, businessmen, people in civil society, pastors, whoever they are. It is my job to ask the tough questions that make them uncomfortable so that you listeners can get the best out of my interviews. Join me every week on The Drill as I ask the most uncomfortable questions, the most important people in society.
So thanks for staying by. Just before the break, you were talking about attracting private funding into the Nigerian railway sector. So, are we to believe that the bill in which you passed has opened the level playing field for private sector funding to come into the railway sector? So, where will the private funds be going to? Will it be in building tracks or in the trains itself?
Now, let me go back a little bit about that partnership between the Chinese government and the Nigerian government. In first rejigging the entire structure, you have to take it from the old rail track to a standard gauge. So building a standard gauge, just like what we have between uh, Abuja and Kaduna, requires a lot of foreign investment. So what we have done is look at the entire length of uh, Lagos to Kano to take care of the western axis, so to say. And then look at, in order to strike a balance, look at Lagos because it is where major commercial activities, goes on. Now, look at Lagos and the eastern part, which will now take Lagos, pass through Ore, Edo, move to Delta, go to, I think, somewhere by way of branching, somewhere in Rivers or so, and then move straight to Calabar. In all these paths, as the rail is going, economic activities are coming up. It opens up the gates of employment, development of communities, trade and commerce. In fact, various settlements will now be created. Nigerians wouldn't have to move to Lagos or Port Harcourt or Kano, which are seen as major um, metropolitan cities to transact their businesses. This used to be the case even with the single track in the olden days. All those lines, you will find commerce and industry and Nigerians trading, working together. You have those who are taking pepper from some parts of the western region to uh, the east or to the north, and then the transportation of cattle, cotton, groundnuts was done through the rail
Okay, so
using a longer time. This time it is going to be a faster track, not electronic yet, but it's a faster track.
okay.
Um,
I know also that you're passionate about the Night Post and about moving letters from one part of the country. Uh, I heard you debate or contribute to this on the floor of the House, and I really want to ask you because the Nigerian people look at Night Post generally and wonder if it's going to go by the same fate of Nitel of NEPA. So what exactly are you working on, or what have you done, to rejig, the life of Night Post and to bring it back to life, to make it effective and to make it efficient for the Nigerian people?
well, sometimes we have to give credit, to the headship of some of these organizations. The new Postmaster General, uh, Mr. Bisi came in at the right time. And in coming in, he devoted all his energies to ensuring that all issues pertaining to the otherwise dead NIPOs had to be reinvented in line with global best practices. And in doing that, he had to make up his mind early enough. Immediately he assumed question that no, private participation is something that is non-negotiable. It has the private sector must participate in the logistics system as far as NEPOS is concerned. So that fired the thoughts in me to come up with the appropriate bill that will now make NIPOS a regulator and by way of private participation bring in foreign direct investments and new technological initiatives and innovations to NIPOS in order to change the ante, move it up, and ensure that the economic propensity of that very, very vital arm of rendering services is achieved. So far, if you don't have legislative framework or backing to do that, to open it up, everything will come to nullity. So, with the passage of this bill now, it is as good as once it reaches its, I think it has even gone through the concurrence part. We are moving it to the presidency. Once it is signed into law, now understand that the presidency is very, very particular and happy about what the National Assembly has done as far as this national bill. Opportunities abound. Unemployment will be reduced. There are so many young people that are IT driven. Gone are the days when you have to go to the Nigerian post office and go and buy stamps.
Stamps.
This bill has opened up in a manner that electronic stamping and even transactions monetarily have been imbibed in this law. It's amazing.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Mm.
So let's talk a bit about local politics. First of all, I'd like to ask you, the fact that one of your party leaders, Chief Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was at a gathering recently and boldly declared, that the APC, particularly in the coming elections, we're going to be moving towards open primary system as it was tested in Osun State with some level of success. Um, so first of all, I'd like to ask you, what are your thoughts about, your leader's disposition towards an open primary system where there can be more participation of card-carrying members of the APC and moving away from the delegate system?
Oh well, it's something that I welcome, and I don't think I am alone in this. I think that is what you call leadership. Leadership uh, by thoughts and example, and when a leader is sensitive to the plight of his people, that leader will be revered, like Ashwadi Bola Ahmed Tinubu. What he has done is to sensitize the electorate. Who are the people that are going to work for the party, for the party to achieve its ultimate goal? They are the members of that party. Yes, we can use delegates. We've been using delegate system before, but this time around, the people are eager. to be seen as part of those, this is the person I chose. To go and register. I understand at the federal, the national level, there's going to be a new registration so that there won't be any form of suspicion
Okay.
that some people have kept register somewhere. This is an old register. There's going to be uh, 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 a centralized unit at the national level that will capture all our members and segment each state according to the registered party members. And it is these registers that will now be given to each state and we look at those members that I think I feel so comfortable with that. And I commend our leader for being the first to really come out and really say that come, let us indulge in participatory politics.
I honestly am glad, that you buy into, the vision of your party leader, and you're quite comfortable, with opening up the political space for more participation. And now this brings me to, the question I've been, you know, rumbling through my mind. 2019 is around the corner. Primary elections will be starting any time from now. I know that this is your second stint in the Senate, and of course, severally you like to brag about the bills that you've influenced in the Senate, which I mean everybody should brag about his or her achievements. But would you be willing, or would you be testing your popularity with this new open primary system um, come next month during the primary elections for a rerun in the Senate?
Also, ask the question properly.
Would you be running back for the
That
Senate?
that is the question. Yes, all indications point to the fact that my constituents are saying I should run, and they are not even leaving any room for me to say no because they've gathered themselves together and they are now tasking themselves that they are going to be the one to buy my nomination form.
Great.
And who am I to say no? When that time comes, I know my answer will be in the positive because it's a show of confidence that in the area of effective representation, they've seen a senator that is doing what he's supposed to be doing there. In area of youth empowerment, they are seeing him there doing very well. Women empowerment and poverty elevation as it relates to the main crux of the the occupation of my people in the east, which is agriculture. They are seeing a lot of work going on there. Artisans and those who, one way or the other, have one skill or the other, that you don't have to stay at home looking for a blue collar, white collar job. Go and learn something. We've been able to have skill acquisition centers in major areas of Lagos Senatorial District. People are going in there to learn, and we are empowering them to start their own small scale businesses.
Okay, so I think this is a fascinating way to end our discussions, and I wish you future luck in your re-election.
Thank you very much.
And it was great talking to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Ayodele Adio. I am the host of The Drill. I am a tough guy that likes to ask the tough questions. That's what I love to do because I love an honest debate and I love a frank discussion. And that's what I do every single week on this show. I get politicians at the other side of the table, businessmen, people in civil society, pastors, whoever they are. It is my job to ask the tough questions that make them uncomfortable so that you listeners can get the best out of my interviews. Join me every week on The Drill as I ask the most uncomfortable questions, the most important people in society.